All right, thank you for joining. My name is Anthony Ferrante. I am the Global Head of Cybersecurity and Senior Managing Director at FTI Consulting. I lead our global cybersecurity practice. I'm here to talk to you today about artificial intelligence, hacking without humans. How can human brains be hacked? We're going to talk about this. It's going to be really interesting. Hopefully, you have some questions. A little bit about me. As I said, the Global Head of Cybersecurity, FTI Consulting, live and work out of Washington, D.C., and I lead a team of global subject matter experts who specialize in cybersecurity problems. Prior to joining FTI Consulting, I was the Director for Cyber Incident Response at the United States National Security Council, the White House. I served under the Obama administration and then 3 months for the Trump administration. You may be wondering, how does this guy get to serve 2 presidents? I was not a political appointee. I was detailed from the FBI. I was an FBI agent for 12 years. And prior to my post at the National Security Council, I was the Chief of Staff of the FBI Cyber Division. So that's me in a nutshell. So let's dig into the topic, all right? In my time as a technologist, believe it or not, 30 years I've been working with technology and hacking computers. I've witnessed the emergence of all sorts of new technologies. The home computer, the mobile device, Internet of Things, blockchain, cryptocurrency, just to name a few. However, and the one that has been most fascinating and most powerful, in my opinion, is artificial intelligence. And that's what I hope to talk to you about for the next 50 minutes. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how artificial intelligence can be leveraged to hack the human brain. And I'm going to demonstrate a few examples of when that has happened in recent history. But before we talk about that, let's go back in time and talk about a few of our most favorite movies in the 80s. Everybody remember War Games? Released in '83. This is a common one. Everybody talks about this one in cybersecurity. What about the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey, released in '68, right? Or another favorite, released in the 80s, Short Circuit. Anyone remember that one? All right, it's good. All right. These were classics and groundbreaking during their time. Many of our parents, and possibly folks in this room, me included, we would roll our eyes at these movies. They're crazy, so far-fetched. Remember Whopper? Was so well programmed that it could predict the possible outcome of global thermonuclear war. A real fear during the Cold War era. Remember Johnny Five in Short Circuit? A robot that developed human feelings after receiving more input. Funny, right? Again, we thought they were silly. However, safe to say, artificial intelligence has gone from a marvel of the big screen to a critical part of our everyday lives today. Alan Turing created the Turing test in the 50s, which is still used today to establish a machine's capability for human-like thought. In the 70s, computers were becoming more and more accessible, but still lacked the significant power and storage needed to process and accomplish effective machine learning. So those machines were then clustered, and we started to realize the true potential. In the 80s, we saw the integration of machine learning in which computers started to learn through experiences, running through cycles, one after another, until they got smarter and developed patterns. 1997 was a watershed moment. We saw the defeat of the world chess champion. Everybody remember this? Russian chess master Garry Kasparov was defeated by IBM's Deep Blue. Watershed moment. It was at that moment the entire world, while shocked, realized the true potential of artificial intelligence. People saw the potential, and its advancement soared. Another interesting fact that some may not know is that when IBM's Deep Blue defeated the Russian chess master, Garry Kasparov, it's actually one of the first times in history that we know that a computer was responsible for sending a human to therapy. Today, well-known supercomputers of cinema are being realized through our pocket-sized devices, such as Apple's Siri and Amazon Alexas. From voice recognition, search predictors, spam filters, and music suggestions, it seems that artificial intelligence is everywhere. And believe it or not, it really is. So let's talk about this. Let's dig in. We, as human beings, are producing troves of data every day. Everything that we do, with every click, every movement, every single day. This data is ingested and used to make artificial intelligence more savvy, more helpful, and ultimately more intelligent. A cliche from my nephew's favorite movie: with great power comes great responsibility. And it's critical to think about the consequences of this data collection and processing. Hacking is a threat that we're all familiar with, especially everyone in this room, and something that many know how to protect against. However, as the lines between science and science fiction blurs, even hacking is getting a futuristic upgrade. It's been said before. In 2017, at the Enigma Security Conference, University of Washington researcher and lecturer Tamara Bonacci revealed that artificial intelligence technology could be used to essentially hack into human brains. Today, we'll discuss the reality of using artificial intelligence to hack the human brain, as well as the security, ethical, legal, and privacy concerns around this technology. Today, we're going to answer a few questions. For example, is what we do online considered personally identifiable information? In what ways is artificial intelligence learning more about us? How is artificial intelligence used to influence our decisions? What types of private information reveal the most about us? How could malicious actors leverage artificial intelligence using our data? At what point does cybersecurity need to be integrated into artificial intelligence? And of course, lastly, how can we protect ourselves from adversarial artificial intelligence? So let's get into it. So I'd like to talk through two concepts here: cerebral spyware and mental malware. Let's talk through them. Cerebral spyware: any application that extracts private information about users' thoughts and actions, from neural signals to decisions. For example, you see an advertisement for a cheeseburger combo at your local restaurant. Your mouth begins to water. You may walk faster. You may walk in that direction. And maybe even you pull out your phone and order that cheeseburger for lunch. Now, a marketing team might see that you, 1, viewed the advertisement, 2, clicked the advertisement, 3, maybe even walked in the direction of the restaurant, 4, maybe even saw you order that cheeseburger. All right? But cerebral spyware isn't just looking at the stimulant and the result, it's looking at all the factors: thoughts, biological reactions. What led you from that advertisement to your decision? What time of day did you see the advertisement? When did you last order a burger? Have you been eating healthier and maybe you wanted to reward yourself? How long were you looking at the advertisement before your mouth began to water? And how long from there did it take you to pull out your phone and place the order? The data gathered through these means could be instrumental in predicting behavior, tailoring advertisements, and overall training artificial intelligence to be more helpful in reaching individuals and producing the desired effect. While cerebral spyware is still being tuned, there's a more pressing yet related problem among us all today. This is mental malware. Mental malware, the process of affecting people with a stimulus they may not be aware of to influence their decisions or behavior. From a technical and traditional standpoint, we all know that malware interferes with a computer's operations through a variety of venues: viruses, Trojans, worms. This interference provides hackers with the opportunity to access a computer, collect information, maybe even hold the computer hostage until someone pays a ransom. Mental malware is quite similar, except the malware is interfering with your brain, impacting your thoughts, your behavior, the decisions without you ever even realizing it. Now you're probably wondering, where does artificial intelligence fit into all this? Well, with more and more data becoming available than ever before, artificial intelligence is getting better at processing, learning, and targeting. The people behind these programs have a goal, whether it's to get you to buy something or to vote a certain way. More on that later. To understand how artificial intelligence can hack the human brain, we need to first understand some fundamental principles associated with artificial intelligence. First, machine learning. The process of training a machine how to learn. The goal for machine learning is to minimize error and ultimately maximize the number of instances in which predictions are correct. Through machine learning, artificial intelligence systems learn from large sets of data to build models and find patterns that will help it make decisions and respond independently, or at least with little to no human interaction or guidance. For example, when you watch movies on Netflix, the platform will often suggest other films or shows to watch that may be of similar nature. Deep neural networks are trained through machine learning and are composed of deep learning algorithms that are specifically designed to mimic the human brain. The networks measure errors when learning and optimize themselves to the point where they can achieve the least amount of errors possible. These algorithms perform the same task over and over again, learning and improving at each turn. Artificial intelligence uses these algorithms to produce large amounts of data, recognize patterns, and ultimately solve problems. The more it learns, the stronger it becomes. Take chess, for example. Our ability to develop and layer deep neural networks through fine-tuning and training with large data sets has helped us go from IBM's Deep Blue, which searched millions of positions per second to find the best move, to an evolved deep neural network-driven computer, or computers, that examine chessboards, learn patterns, recognizes strong and weak positions on the board, and plays based on the value of a position. Sound familiar? Sounds like a human playing chess. The more games it plays, the more positions it sees, the stronger our chess-playing artificial intelligence will become. Similarly, the more data artificial intelligence ingests, the stronger it will become at predicting, targeting, and influencing human behavior. That said, it's never been more important to think about the data we are producing and sharing about ourselves, and how that data can be used to help us or to hurt us. Of course, I'm sure everyone in this room is very familiar with the term personally identifiable information, or PII. PII is defined different ways by different people. Ultimately, information that can be used to distinguish or trace an identity, either alone or when combined with other personal or identifying information that is linked or linkable to a specific individual. Some examples: name, social security number, date of birth, email address, social security number, hometown, maybe even your race, religion. While some of these elements on their own may not seem critical, when combined, they can create a distinct profile about certain individuals. The rise in technologies and platforms that collect our data from social media, where we might share photos and updates, to Internet of Things devices that we might wear, talk to, ask questions of. This has generated a whole new category of data-based, personally identifiable information. Just as a hacker can collect your PII, your name, your address, your social security number to commit fraud, artificial intelligence can collect information on what you say, the tone of your voice, the websites you may click on, what you might watch, and for how long. It will create a profile on you. That profile can be leveraged for further targeting, and in some cases, malicious targeting. One of the newest frontiers in emerging technology are the voice-activated Internet of Things devices like Google Home or Amazon Alexa. I won't lie, I own at least one of each. I think they're great tools. While asking your smart devices about the weather, or to play a song, or to order something online may seem harmless, you're actually providing a lot more data about yourself than you might think. Let's look at 3 simple variables: identity, emotion, health. Identity. This could reveal regional accents or one's grasp of a language, from fluency to age. Voice data could also reveal information about a dialect. For example, parts of the United States, people may refer to soda as pop, cola, or tonic. Using one of these words is something that voice-activated artificial intelligence might pick up on, file away, and use in order to develop a profile of a user. Emotion. The tone of voice could signal a certain emotion. Our devices may pick up on sadness, happiness, or even excitement. If artificial intelligence can notice sadness, how could that information be leveraged by those who own the data being transmitted? Could we one day see the information transmitted directly to physicians or therapists, transforming the way in which doctors diagnose mental health issues or track medication moods or mood swings? In addition to mental health, there's also physical health. For example, if voice-activated artificial intelligence can learn from the sound of our voice, it might be able to hear when you're recovering from a cold based on the hoarseness of your voice or your congestion. As I mentioned earlier, we're producing more data than ever every single day, and devices leveraging artificial intelligence technology are getting better at collecting, processing, analyzing that data to learn about us every single day. So let's go a little deeper. Let's talk about social media. Social media is a very powerful platform. Optimizes user-provided data. That data can be fed into artificial intelligence technology to learn about a user's activity and ultimately tailor their platform-based experience in a better way. All social media platforms aggregate data to develop insights. But I'd like to spotlight two pros that consistently leverage artificial intelligence technology in a positive way. Facebook and Twitter. At Facebook, machine learning is key. Artificial intelligence is used to tailor news feeds so that a user sees updates from friends, pages, and groups they care about most, effectively ensuring that certain content rises above the noise. Facebook believes this makes the platform more valuable to their users. Another Facebook example is the classification of photos and video content. While it's not yet perfected, the platform learns to recognize faces and associates them with specific users. So that when you upload a photo, the platform suggests the name of the individuals featured in that image. This is awesome. Interesting fact, this same technology is used by law enforcement to help identify and rescue missing and exploited children. Talk about Twitter for a quick second. Twitter is another social media platform that takes advantage of AI to improve the user experience. Twitter customizes algorithms so that a user's timeline, so that when a user logs in their Twitter feed, at the top of their feed is the most relevant content based on their interactions with the platform. Again, to allow relevant content to rise above the noise. These are great examples. So what does all this mean for the future of machine learning, deep neural networks, and artificial intelligence? Remember, online experience is not necessarily limited to the time spent in front of a computer or our interactions on our mobile phones. Simply put, it's every point of engagement, active or passive, we may have with an internet-connected device. And with the rise of Internet of Things, one day we could see all this information, the user data and PII I spoke about earlier, every click, every command, every device interaction, pooled and shared across all platforms. A positive? This would be used to tailor our online experience, possibly putting us in our own virtual bubble. The negatives? This is a lot of information, our personal insights, personal information that most certainly could be used against us. Earlier in the presentation, I mentioned the rise of mental malware, a way in which artificial intelligence can hack the human brain. Let's recap for a quick sec. Mental malware is the process of affecting people with a stimulus that they may not be aware of to influence their decision or behavior. And artificial intelligence can make it more targeted than ever before. As this group knows, there's no such thing as perfect security for a computer, for an account, unfortunately, even for the human brain. But how can the private information we share with technology be used to influence us? And is there a way to mitigate that influence? Let's walk through a scenario. One day, Jane Doe pulls out her mobile device and searches for a place to eat at her local mall. A few hours later, Jane is online working on her laptop when she is presented with an advertisement for a restaurant at her local mall. Of course, this isn't a coincidence. It's by design, and it's driven by artificial intelligence. Later that day, Jane arrives at her local mall and sees the restaurant from the online advertisement. In summary, Jane's search produced data that was then leveraged by artificial intelligence to target her with a specific advertisement, one that might influence her decision, as we know, where to get lunch that day at the mall. This is not an uncommon scenario. I'm very confident that this scenario has happened to every single person in this room. I think I have 20 minutes left. Is that what that says? 15. Okay. I'm confident it's happened to every single person in this room. While a seemingly harmless use of data and something that many may just call highly targeted advertising, this is just the tip of the iceberg with respect to the implications of data collection and precise artificial intelligence-driven targeting. This is not really a new concept. Product placement is one of the oldest examples of mental malware. By showing a product in a passive setting, viewers are being primed to recognize and ideally desire those products. It's been a mainstay of advertising in television and film for ages. Remember the film Jurassic World? The film featured vehicles by Mercedes-Benz. How about Stranger Things? The Coca-Cola brand is shown throughout the series. But simple product placement lacks a key element: information about its specific targets. Don't get me wrong. Advertisers might assume that people watching a certain film fall into a certain age range, income bracket, or even hold a certain religious affiliation. But they can't be certain that whoever is watching will be interested in their product. Not everyone drinks soda. I'm not saying targeted advertising is perfect, but it does demonstrate that product placement, a form of mental malware, lacks the advantages of real-time analytics and data-driven artificial intelligence technology. So let's get a little provocative. Let's talk about some malicious uses. With today's technology, convincing people to buy a product can be just as easy as getting them to cast their ballot for a certain candidate. The 2016 US presidential election was a perfect example of how artificial intelligence can be used to hack the human brain. The most impactful event leading into the 2016 US presidential election was the large-scale disinformation campaign coordinated by foreign actors. This was done in an attempt to influence American voters. As early as 2014, Russian agents purchased space on digital advertising platforms with the goal of polarizing American voters on banner issues like race, policing, gun control, and religion, among others. Russia effectively executed a strategic, premeditated scheme to create chaos and disorder and to pit Americans against each other. The extent, sophistication, and persistence of Russian interference on the hearts and minds of Americans cannot be understated or overlooked. Hacking the human brain is exactly what Russia was able to accomplish. When it comes to malicious actors, leveraging this technology is the new normal, and we need to be prepared to better combat adversarial uses of artificial intelligence. As I've implied throughout this presentation, every interaction we have with internet-connected technology produces data, information that could be leveraged by malicious actors. This might include gathering intelligence about an individual through their conversations, purchases, browsing history, among others. Targeting users the way Russia did in 2016 with a massive disinformation campaign. Covertly sowing discord among vulnerable populations. Using compromising data to extort individuals for confidential information or compensation. There is no perfect method to combat adversarial use of artificial intelligence, but there are really smart people working really hard. Before we discuss ways to combat adversarial uses of artificial intelligence, I'd like to just note a few other ways in which artificial intelligence is being used to analyze data for the good. We often think about hacking the human brain as a bad thing, but not all hacking is driven by malicious intent. For example, in the healthcare sector, artificial intelligence might one day be perfected to achieve significant strides in mental health diagnosis and treatment. It could help us diagnose behavioral and emotional disorders by assessing actions and feelings, detecting patterns associated with depression or bipolar disorder. Artificial intelligence could one day be used to catch the early signs of Alzheimer's possibly years before the first signs of the disease appear to a physician or family members. Identify warning signs for potentially destructive behavior, and maybe one day be able to outline effective treatments for symptoms of mental health issues based on individuals' responses to medications, therapy, or other solutions. When we discuss artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, the conversation often focuses on how we can use artificial intelligence to improve cybersecurity. But something I always say is that data is not only an organization's greatest asset, but as we've discussed today, data is also an organization's greatest liability. It is paramount for us to take steps to secure critical information. Everything we've discussed today demonstrates how malicious actors could weaponize data by leveraging artificial intelligence to achieve their goals. We must also consider how malicious actors can compromise artificial intelligence as any other internet-connected technology. For example, an autonomous vehicle could misinterpret street signs. Thinking back to the example I used of artificial intelligence to treat mental health issues, alterations to an algorithm could result in a misdiagnosis. A whole new set of problems are presented before us. So one way to combat these vulnerabilities is by leveraging blockchain. This technology has been applied across several industries for a wide range of issues. For example, using blockchain to determine the source of goods, taking farm to table to a whole new level by showing the exact path of fruits and vegetables before it gets to our plate. This could be useful to demonstrate sourcing, as well as track foodborne illnesses by knowing where a product came from and the chain of custody to reach the consumer. Similarly, blockchain can be used to stymie the spread of artificial intelligence mental malware. Think about a scenario where you can track the origins of information that you read every single day. This technology can also be used to validate the information based on sources, distinguish trusted sources and individuals from unverified sources. Certify information as trusted. Combating adversarial artificial intelligence will require a combination of technology and policy solutions. This includes, as you're going to hear a lot today or this week at RSA, this includes public and private sector cooperation and partnerships. 2 points that we often hear when it comes to these partnerships is we've all heard before, information sharing and protecting data. But I challenge you all to think about this in a third way and add a third element. In addition to information sharing and protecting data, we need to start thinking about how information can be used. Right? It's a new charter. It's a new ask of everyone. Where are we generating data? How are we generating data? And how can that data be used? Artificial intelligence is evolving very quickly, so get ready. When you encounter new applications for artificial intelligence in your field, ask yourself some questions. How is the technology protected from malicious actors? Know the data protection measures in place. How will the data collected be used? Know the agreements for data use. Could any information that is collected be used against users? Know the type of data you are sharing and how artificial intelligence could use it to help or, if it fell in the wrong hands, hurt you. What are the broader implications of using these new technologies? Understand the point which we sacrifice safety and security for comfort and convenience. So that said, I believe I'm right on time. I'd be happy to take any questions, or if you're tired of listening to me talk, I won't be offended if you want to end early. Questions? Not even from the media.
Hey, so the way you've described the use of AI, is this thing even on? Can you guys hear me? To me, isn't a whole lot different from an advertising perspective. I look for a place to eat in the morning. Sometime before lunch, I get an ad suggesting maybe another restaurant. I get a discount. I go to that restaurant. Not necessarily malicious or a bad thing. I also don't think that's really much worse than, say, in the 40s, right? And a magazine ad tells me that smoking Lucky Strike cigarettes makes me more sophisticated, right? Or something like that. So the question kind of becomes, in my mind, not so much the technology being good or bad, but the ethics around it and the ability to manage the ethics around it. Do you know of any conversations, technologies, policies being discussed to try to help manage the ethical use of the technology as opposed to sort of just bringing awareness to the fact that it can be used in an unethical way?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The scenarios I described here today are truly, they're nothing that we're not used to or that hasn't evolved from the early days of a magazine advertisement. I think the reality is, though, is because it is just evolving so quickly that the scope and scale in which artificial intelligence is going to be woven into our lives is just going to increase exponentially. And you're right. I think there needs to be some hard conversations, some hard policy conversations about its use, because the implications, I don't think, are fully appreciated. And I think it's a conversation. I do know there are very smart technologists having conversations about its use, but of course their motives are to maximize comfort and convenience for new products or new ideas. But again, how does that affect society? And that's a conversation I think our governments need to have a discussion on. Other questions?
Since you singled me out, Wallace Mikowski with MarketWatch. I had a question when you were talking about we're unaware of what data is, more and more data is being collected on us now. I was wondering if you could provide us of an example or someone who's actually monitoring new uses of data collection and what organizations are doing with it. Is there anybody keeping track of these new uses, or is that kind of a proprietary situation where we don't know because it's behind some company's IP?
Yeah, I think there are lots of people monitoring data generation and data collection. I also think the efforts are distributed and diversified across different organizations. There is no central authority or central entity that is tracking and reporting all this, like I said, data generation and collection. And I think you're right. I think organizations are doing this for their own financial benefit at this point. And that's what we need. That's what I hope today's lecture brought awareness to this room that it is happening. It's happening now. It's been happening for years. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I'm not saying that artificial intelligence and its uses today on various platforms is a bad thing. I'm just trying to bring awareness to it that it can be used in a malicious way. And we need to think about these implications as we adopt them. As I said, I have many Internet of Things devices in my home, and I value the comfort and conveniences they bring. But I'm also cognizant of the data I provide those devices. So if you think about it, I believe the statistic is the average user has 3 or 4 devices on their person at any given time that is collecting data from them, whether it's their phone or 2 phones, a Fitbit, a smartwatch. These are all devices that are going to collect information about you. And they do it with amazing precision. And it's very helpful. The question is can that data then be weaponized?
So when it comes to the technologies around being able to look at the way people are typing, so putting into web browsers we can actually track people's key movements, how much they press, what rhythm they're pressing, and even mouse movements where they sit on a mouse and where a mouse hovers on a screen. It allows us to then look at the characteristics of the way the person uses that application. But it also lets us know things like if they type a password and the password is the way that you typed it is the same. You and I type the same password, but we'll type it differently. So I will know your password, therefore I've breached your account. Do you think, what's your thoughts around it's an invasion of privacy for me to contact you and say, look, you logged onto my application and I don't think it was you, even though you used the right password? Is the question making sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And it goes back to one of my earlier points. Know what platforms may be collecting data about you and how they're collecting that data. Because, I mean, with these new technologies and people innovating every single day, there are different ways to collect this data, whether it's the speed in which you're typing, the time in which you're hovering on something or viewing a website or watching a movie or reading a web page. It's all collecting this data about you. Could that collection of data build a profile about you that could then help us secure our identity more? Sure. And I think there are players in industry now taking such steps. It's no longer just a username and password. It is a username and password location, two-factor authentication, different types of two-factor authentication, the machine in which you're logging into, right? You see it happening right before our eyes. More and more of this data is being used to help secure our devices. Any other questions? We got one more. Are we okay for time?
Got a quick one, and it's not really a well-formed question because what's going through my brain is I've got GDPR saying I have the right to be forgotten, and you have to tell me that you're going to collect information. Now, I'm halfway assuming this is the European response to American companies that they're not fond of. But the other half of the equation is how this might be used by, if you'll, nation states, one against the other. And I'm not sure if that's coming up or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I talked through a scenario today about how it was used in plain sight. I mean, that's important. I mean, that's a much important question you need to ask yourself when engaging with these service providers that may be collecting this data. Who owns them, right? If they're American-owned, is there a majority ownership from an overseas entity, right? Where is the data stored? How are they collecting it? How are they protecting it? I mean, there's lots of questions that need to be asked around these topics. That's why, you know, as this technology continues to evolve, we need to be aware of how it can be used. But before we're aware of how it can be used, we need to think about, is my computer, is my phone, is my Fitbit, is my smartwatch collecting data about me, and what data would they be collecting? I think that is the important question that a lot of people just haven't been asking because they don't fully appreciate the effects or the consequences of that collection of data. I just got the 5-minute signal. So we have 5 more minutes for questions. Or like I said, I won't be offended if you want to end early. Thank you.